before I share with you what they are, what do you think? Where are the three brains in our bodies? Where are the three brains in our bodies? You can write it in the chat or feel free to unmute and speak.
So I think
In
it's
the heart.
in our
Head.
heart, in our head, and in our gut.
Absolutely. Those are the three, in our heart, in our head, and in our gut. And I want to talk about each of those one by one. So let's just start with the head. This is our rational brain. This is the brain that we use when we look at problems logically. We evaluate the pros and cons of a situation. We look at strengths and weaknesses. We measure things. We look at risk. We look at return on investment if we're in a business environment. This is where our fact-based decisions come from. I'm not going to get into the reptilian, the limbic, etc. But the brain is our rational, logical brain. The second one is our heart. So this is what we call our emotional brain. It's much more spontaneous. It's where we feel our passion. It's where we have the seat of our creativity. And our heart tends to respond to what we're feeling in the moment. And I just want to ask you just to think for a moment, and probably it's easier to speak, but you're welcome to write. Think of all the phrases that have to do with our heart. So I'll just give you an example. The first one, from the bottom of my heart. What are some of the other phrases? I have a long list here and I want to see how many you can think of. So heart-centered, okay. Thank you, Tara. Heartfelt, Diane, thank you. Heart-to-heart conversations. Minna, that's one I didn't have any of these on my list. This is great. What else? Heartbreak, Subhashini, okay. Leading with all my heart, with my heart, Eileen. Let's get to the heart. Heartwarming. Wow, you guys are great. So some of the others that I had down was have a change of heart, have a heart, your heart's in the right place. Let's see.
Heartfelt.
Heartfelt, being half-hearted or making a half-hearted attempt, following your heart, eat your heart out, find it in your heart, have your heart set on. There are all these phrases that refer to what's going on inside our hearts. So this is our emotional brain. It reaches out to the world. And that's where our memories, our images, our visions, our dreams, our passions, that's the seat of all of those things. Okay? And then we have the gut. So the gut is what we call our intuitive brain. So we have the rational brain, the emotional brain, and the intuitive brain. And this brain sends implicit but unclear messages about what's happening for us. So this is the little voice that niggles at us, and we don't really know why. We're not really conscious of it, kind of like the heart and the head would be. This is the brain that lets us know things without reasoning, which is why it's less tangible and less obvious. And it's a harder one to listen to. So I would just like to ask you, before we go on, and you can do it in the chat or you can do it with the little fun annotate tool at the top of your screen. You can pull down under annotate, you can click on that and you can pick, what's it called? Stamp. And under stamp, there are all kinds of little icons. You can pick any icon you want, but I'd like you to click on the brain that you tend to default to. Because this is really, as I said, about getting to know ourselves a little better and look at our own responses to things. So which is the brain you tend to respond to, your default brain? Okay, I have to move my chat down here so I can see you just a minute. Whoop, what am I doing? Turn that off. I'm trying to move my chat and it's writing instead. Just a minute. Linda, can you tell me where the marks are? For some reason, I'm having a hard time seeing it because my chat box is in the way and it wants to scribble on my chat box.
For sure. We have, hold on, a couple arrows going towards the heart and a couple hearts on the heart. We have a heart on the gut, and we have 2 hearts below, so I'm not sure if they're in line with the brain. So,
Okay.
and we also have some chat.
So it sounds like most of us are heart or gut. Is that accurate?
Oh, there's
That
another
sound
brain one. Another brain one just came in.
okay? I made my chat too big. Maybe I could just take my chat away and then it'd be okay. It's interesting. I mean, especially when you think that most of us are horse people. I think it's kind of interesting. So if we take a look, whoops, what is going on here? Just a minute. What's unfortunate is research says that as we get older, our brain takes over and we rely less on our heart than we do when we're younger. So there are times when we do need to listen to our heads, and sometimes we need to listen to our hearts and our guts. But when we don't acknowledge what's going on in our hearts and our guts, what happens? What happens when you ignore your heart and your gut? Regret, disconnect. How many of you feel it physically when that happens? How many of you feel it physically? You can say me or yes in the chat. Yeah, exactly. So there's something you've probably heard of. It's a term, called cognitive dissonance. And that's what we experience when we behave in a way that's contrary to what our insides are telling. Okay? So some of you said that you do feel it in your bodies. Where do you feel it? Where do you tend to feel it when you are in cognitive dissonance? Gut, okay. Shoulders, gut, stomach and chest. I feel it a lot in my chest and stomach as well. Neck. And my guess is if you were to spend some time thinking about what that body part represents to you, it would probably give you some insights into why the decision you're making is maybe not the right one at the time. So this cognitive dissonance tends to occur in situations when, for example, we're making a decision that we feel uncomfortable about making. In other words, we don't really want to make the decision, but we have to. Or maybe we've made a decision or taken an action, but we're looking to justify it or rationalize it. We see that a lot, not just in ourselves, but people do that a lot. Or maybe you feel embarrassed or shameful about something you've done or a decision you've made, and you try to hide it from others, and it kind of sits inside you. Or maybe you feel guilt or regret about something that you've done. And then there's this thing called FOMO, fear of missing out, where we make decisions because we're afraid we're going to miss out on something, but deep down it's not in our hearts. How many of you have had that experience? You can raise your hand, or you can say me in the chat, sorry. Yeah, I can really identify with that one, and the thing is, I know when I'm doing it. I'm aware that it's happening, and it's that awareness that slowly enables us to break free from that. But it's just good to know that, to be able to label it and say, okay, why am I really making this decision, and what am I afraid of? What will happen if I don't make this choice? So we have to look within, we have to honor what's there, and it begins with being in integrity. So first I'd like to just share this little video, and I want, sorry. We'll get to the video in a minute, but the first thing we have to do is we need to be aware of the shoulds. The shoulds are the fears, the judgments, the expectations that we have of ourselves, what others have of us. And when we are aware of that, when we are really in integrity, because we understand and we acknowledge that, we create an energy that draws us. And when we're not, when we refute it or we pretend it's not there, then our energy is more off-putting. So the whole idea is to not have hidden agendas with ourselves, to be open and honest and raw. And the horses do that very, very well. So I want to just share with you an example. So I want to see you to see what happens in this video. We're going to watch a young woman, and she's trying to gain the horse's cooperation. And I want you to watch it and look for any cues about how you think she was feeling. What was she trying to do? How well did it work for her? What was wrong? Did she hurt the horse? Just look at it from the perspective of being congruent with herself. Okay, so I'm going to start the video. So for this part, I'd really like you to unmute for a minute because I'd like to talk about this one rather than have you write it in the chat. What comes up for you as you watch this video? What did you see?
I saw a lot of struggle.
Mm-hmm.
I could feel her pain, like she so wanted to connect and it wasn't happening, and I just felt that struggle so deeply inside myself.
Frustration.
Frustration. She was feeling frustrated. So yeah, go ahead.
A lot of back and forth, like unsure of the action.
Exactly. So let's go for a minute with the feeling of frustration that we're imagining she felt. Did her behavior or actions match her this perceived feeling? What led you to think she was frustrated?
No.
Because the course didn't follow what she wanted him to do.
Exactly. So, and what was she doing? How was she responding to that? Alternatively, of course.
Well, I think in the very beginning, what I noticed is she was very crowding. She was very much in his space when he was trying to eat. I mean, she was very interruptive, I felt.
Mm-hmm.
And that, I think, may have set the tone. I mean, and I'll let other people go beyond that.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Denise. Okay. Someone else?
It felt like
Felt insecurity.
And what was it about her posture or demeanor, or what was it that gave you that impression?
For her insecurity?
Yeah.
How she would quickly retreat and try to coax.
Okay.
You know, try to,
Yeah.
almost like a feeling of desperate, I'm trying to connect with you, I'm trying to get you to come with me, but yet I don't know.
Okay. So there seemed to be some uncertainty. And
Yeah.
we've already established that there was some incongruence because you've pointed out that it seems there was frustration there, but her actions weren't saying I'm frustrated. It was something else, right?
There was kindness, yeah.
There was kindness, exactly. So what might she have tried differently?
I think she was trying to be affectionate, though she was not probably feeling it.
Exactly, Subhashini. Yes. So I will tell you, in this exercise, I let her be in that place for a while. And then I approached her and I asked her how she was feeling. And her answer was, just as you said, I'm feeling frustrated. And I said to her, is the horse doing what you need or want him to do? And she said, no. And I said, so how do you feel about that? And she said, frustrated. And I said, I just am curious. You're saying that you're frustrated, yet you go back and you pat him and you tell him he was a good boy. So you're encouraging him for that behavior. And I asked her, could you explain to me what that's about? And she said, yes, I thought if I was nice to him, he would come. And I said, and how's that working for you? And she said, it's not. And I said, well, what would you like to do? And she said, well, I'd really like to just kind of get in touch with how I really feel. And I said, and what's that again? She said, frustrated. And I said, and what do you want the horse to do? She said, I want him to just come. I said, okay, so see if you can get in touch with that and access that frustration and then try. And it took 2 tries and off she went. So this is an example of how maybe she was having anxiety because her teammates were watching and she wanted to be perceived in a certain way, and she didn't want to be perceived as mean or coercive because she's a very gentle, very lovely woman. And this happens to a lot of us, that in certain situations we behave in a way that's incongruent with what's going on behind us, inside us. And this is what the horses pick up on. It's not that you always have to be I don't want to say you don't want to be patient and kind, because we always want to be patient and kind, but we also have to be in touch with what we mean and what we want. And again, I'm not saying every time we are in integrity, the horse will do exactly what we want, because sometimes they want to be over with their friends, or sometimes they want to go over and eat that grass, and it takes more encouraging. I'm not saying that this is the magic key and it always works, but what is key here is that we need to think about what we do with what's happening around us. So in this case, what do we do with what the horse does? But outside of the horse world, it's what do we do with what comes up that matters, okay? And we have to think about that. So do we acknowledge what comes up inside us? Do we work with what's there? Do we stop and reassess and say, okay, how am I feeling about this? Why am I feeling this way about it? And how can I come to congruence with myself? So if you think for a moment of some examples when your actions maybe run counter to your feelings, just kind of take a moment to think of some situation you've been in when your actions don't match your thoughts or feelings, and just spend a moment and see where you feel it inside your own body. I'll give you my own example. You know, I have this little horse ranch, and I, of course, love for everybody to have access to the horses, but sometimes it can feel overwhelming, and I have a hard time saying no. And, you know, everybody in the neighborhood wants to have their little girl come and have riding lessons. I'm not a riding school, but I feel bad, and I want to give them the chance to be around the horses. And I am learning to say I'm sorry and explain why. But when I say okay, and I don't really mean it, I feel it somewhere between my chest and my gut in a really big way. And so if you pay attention to those signs within your own body, over time you will see that it's always coming to the same spot in your body, and that becomes your first clue. And so this is about being aware of it. So if any of you, so the horses have helped me to be a little less accommodating and learning to honor myself and my own choices. And when I do that, I do feel a lot better. And I believe that the other party, whether it's horses or people, feel a lot better too. So if any of you would like to share your own experiences of being in cognitive dissonance because your actions don't match your words, I'd love to hear your experiences if you care to share.
I think there are 2 things that I feel. If I overwork myself, I feel it in my shoulders and my neck. So it's a sign to say, hey, you need a break. if I'm violating my emotions by powering through with my brain, I feel it in my chest, like you, Nikki. It's almost like my chest collapses and I feel I can't breathe. And then I know I'm violating myself emotionally.
Exactly, because we're almost squeezing the life out of us in our chest. So I can completely relate. Anyone else want to share anything that you've experienced in this way?
I said not voicing preferences. You know, I tend to just say whatever you want to do, wherever you want to go, you know, and I do that very consistently.
You know, Denise, I have a friend and a client who's very much like that, and she's been in a few of my sessions, and like 2 or 3. And the third session, it was time to pick a horse to work with, and she said, "Oh, that's okay. I'll just take who's ever left." And I said, "No, you need to pick a horse." No, it's okay. Just let everybody else pick, and I'll just take. And I said,
Right.
"No, this time you're going to pick a horse." And she started crying.
Uh,
And she said, I'm not used to doing that. I'm used to letting everybody else go. So
right.
you're not alone in that. You're not alone in that. So listening from within it's not always easy, but it's really, really critical that we learn to do it. So so I'm just asking you to just dare to listen to yourself, because when we act on our true feelings, 3 things happen. Well, probably much more than 3, but I'm only talking about 3. The first one is to learn to trust your instincts, because we feel better when we do. The second one is you're able to much more easily influence because you're more transparent, and people feel that, and that's honest, and it makes us vulnerable, and it also makes us more valid. And the third one is we will find it easier to approach and navigate changes when they meet us in the face. So sometimes, especially at first, we do need to challenge ourselves. In other words, what I mean by that is we may quickly assign a feeling or a reason for whatever's coming up in us. And sometimes we have to look a little bit deeper. So I'm asking you to think about how to challenge your own voice. Doing that can feel really unsafe, because it means we risk exposing painful parts of us that we would prefer to ignore. I know there are certain things that I just like want to go dig a hole in the sand and put my head in, because I just don't want to deal with it. But acknowledging our stuck patterns enables us to change them. And I said this actually in a class that I did yesterday on leadership, and I said that it's really important to remember that we are not our patterns. Our patterns are only a set of behaviors, and we can change them. So going back to the horse, when a horse acts in the moment, those of us who work with horses, or children, or friends, we really try to see what's behind their actions, and then we work with it. So we're patient and we're kind and we're understanding, and we look for reasons, but we don't challenge them, and we don't judge them, and we don't make them wrong. But it's hard for many of us to do that for ourselves. And so there are 3 really important practices that I feel are helpful in this, in terms of challenging our own voice, and I wanted to share them with you. The first one is taking time to listen. So listen to yourself. Sort out what it is that makes you uncomfortable. Even if it takes a while to get to it, just be with it and say, okay, why is this bothering me so much? Did that comment hurt so much? What's it triggering in me? And when you get to the right answer, you will know it, because it'll resonate. It'll be like a big epiphany for you. The second one is use your body for the physical clues. Olga, you spoke very clearly about the difference between your shoulders and neck and your chest when you're experiencing cognitive dissonance. So scan your body for physical cues and sensations that you may feel. And as I said, you might find that they're the same ones each time. And then the third one is explore the why behind your behavior. Your instincts will really improve by listening and scanning. And don't be afraid to question your own behavior. Sometimes you can ask other people too. So if you remember the video, she didn't want to acknowledge her frustration. Why? what are some of the reasons she might not have wanted to acknowledge the frustration in front of herself and, you know, her teammates? What was she afraid of?
Failure, maybe.
Yes, maybe afraid of failure. What else?
What will the
Depends-
teammates think, right?
Exactly. What will people think?
And especially if she was the leader of that group, that this sense of needing to be perfect all the time and being the one that can get things from the starting gate. And if she was having trouble, that she might feel it's compromising her leadership role in her team.
Exactly. So there are all kinds of things that could trigger the fear. And so by understanding which of those things or all of those things were behind her fear, that's a lot of information. And at the first stage, that's all we're looking for, is for people to become really aware. And the horses help us do that. So we practice pause and the listening. And when we practice pausing and listening, the why gets easier to find. And you'll be able to identify the roots of your own discomfort. Your unconscious biases kind of start to lose their grip, because now we've named them, we've brought them out to the forefront, even if we're not very good at addressing them yet. Somehow it quiets the beast when we've given them a name. So what I really like to impress upon you is that hanging out with horses really helps us be our best selves. It calls us to be clear, it calls us to be transparent and open, and to be really honest about who we are and how we are. And I believe that horses are that way, and that transparency that they live with resonates within us. So if you don't have a horse, find one to be with, or watch some over the fence. It doesn't really matter. And just spend some time enjoying and appreciating the ease with they flow in and out of formations, situations, and relations, without hidden agendas, without holding any grudges, and without any judgments. It's really that pure and simple. So that's kind of my parting message for you. And I wanted to thank you from me, and of course from Linda and the whole equine leadership team. So if you have questions, I would love to address them, or if you have comments or you want to speak, share with each other, I'd be very happy. If we still have time, Linda?
Oh, absolutely. Yep, we're doing well.
I have a question. Thank you, Nikki. This was very insightful and very eye-opening. I feel like if you don't have horses, you can use children for the same reason. I think
Yes. Yes.
it's very similar, I think, in the way they behave. I wanted to ask though, so it's clear, right? You, if you listen, you learn more. But when you're in a big formation, and let's say you have people who you like, you don't like, you agree, or you don't agree. If sometimes it takes powering through to work with difficult people, because you have to work with them, right? And
Yes.
you kind of you know, you might not care for that person, but it's happen to be your peer, and you happen to be on the same task. So it's you know, listening to your heart and finding all the good in that person is great, but sometimes you just feel frustrated. So I wonder. If that frustration shows, how is there any magic bullets to turn that around? What do horses do in this case when they don't like each other and they have to stay together?
They express it and then they move on. They express, and you know what? It's too bad. I have this video, and it shows two of my horses coming together, and they have this, you know, bucking, rearing mess, and then they just go off in their own directions in a walk, really peacefully and calmly. But what I would say is there's two pieces that I think are really important. One is the more we get in touch with what's frustrating about us or what our fears or concerns are, because, you know, I talk about this sometimes in my conflict classes, and I say that there's a difference between a personal conflict and I forgot what I called the other one, like a technical conflict, a functional conflict. So a functional conflict does not go away if you change the people, because it's based on processes or rules and regulations or something that is part of the infrastructure, okay? But a personal problem, if you remove the people, the problem goes away. So that tells you that it's something between the personalities. So one approach would be first to just really get clear on what's my trigger here. what's the frustration? Is it something just about this person I don't like? Is it historic information about how they've worked with me in the past? So that's one piece. The other piece of it, and I'll get to the third piece, the second piece of it has to do with acknowledging and recognizing that for someone else to behave, what I'll say, badly, something's going on for them too. And they are experiencing some kind of trigger. So when we are, first of all, in congruence with ourselves, we are calmer and better able to handle other people. But the second piece of it is I've found that if I put out, and I'm not always good at doing this, Olga, I'm still learning. I wish I'd started this, 40 years ago. But if I put out what's bothering me in a factual way, and a way that makes it easier to address and is not accusatory, then it makes it easier for the other person to meet you halfway. And it also takes the flame out of it. So if I say, I'm feeling really frustrated now because I'm concerned that I'm not going to meet my project deadline because I don't have this piece of information. You're honoring your frustration, but it's different than saying, you really frustrate me because you never get me this stuff on time. Does that make sense?
Makes perfect sense. Thank you.
So we have to kind of spin it so we're taking the you out of it and we're owning what's coming up for us. So I always try, and I'm not always successful, but I always try to say, here's what's coming up for me right now. I'm feeling frustrated because this isn't happening. Not, I'm angry at you because you didn't do this. The minute we hear that, the hair goes up on the back of our necks and we start putting up our fists. So I hope that helps. Sorry.
Very helpful. Thank you.
Good. Okay. I'm going to take this off screen sharing so that I can see you again. If that's okay, Linda? Let's see, stop
Yeah, if
sharing.
everybody wants to come up, for sure.
There. So any other comments or questions or comments or things you want to share? Denise,
I'm curious, for you to maybe revisit challenging your own voice, particularly when you rely on your gut instincts, and determining what's valid, what's real, and what's not.
Yeah, I think that's, well, first of all, Denise, I would say that your gut is probably, well, I shouldn't, I don't know, I'm going to say it anyway. I think that our gut is probably the truest form of feedback. I really do. I think our gut has the truest information for us, especially given the fact that there's no rationale for it.
Okay.
It's just there. And
right.
So I have found, I don't know how many of you, I'd love for you to speak to this, but how many of you have had a situation where you're just, your gut's telling you, but you can't really justify it, and you either didn't go for it and you saw the results of it later, or you did go for it and you said, I'm so glad I listened to my gut. How many of you have had that experience? Has anybody?
Yes.
Yeah.
All the time.
I don't know. Do any of you think that the head or the heart has, the heart I feel is emotional, and we always have to temper our emotional response with a cognitive response because there are two parts to it. But our gut, I don't know, it's something different, and I think that's why it's the most difficult one to pay attention to, because we don't always have to justify, but somehow we think we do. We don't always have to justify. It's enough to feel it.
It's almost like the gut also equates to, in some ways, like faith. You have a belief, you can't explain it necessarily, but if you don't honor that, then sometimes that's where it gets you a little bit tripped up.
Exactly. And then we realize it later. And I don't know, I have to say, the older I get, and I'm old, but the older I get, the more I really try to listen to that gut, and I don't just dismiss it. And it hurts at first because it's scary, but then you know, it's like, okay, I'm going to use a funny example here. Sometimes my husband is going away. I'm kind of, I don't like it, but he's gone 10 minutes and I'm like, whoa, this is so nice. I have the house to myself. It's kind of like that, you know, it's like, oh my gosh, I'm going to go with my gut. This is really scary. Is it the right thing? And then you settle into it and you go, wow, this feels really right. So I don't know, it's practicing and then just experiencing the wonderful outcome. And I guess that's what horses do. They just do whatever comes to them in the moment. And then the moment passes and they're on to the next thing. So I don't know if that helps Denise or not.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
And sometimes I feel that the gut shows up for me when I experience fear.
Yes. Yes.
It warns me of some danger, perhaps, of being in a place or with someone. That's when I feel it most strongly in the gut.
Exactly. Or you meet someone, you just get the willy-nillys and you, I don't know.
Yeah.
So and actually I read an article, I wish I had the specifics of it with me or I'd put it in the presentation, but in our article not so long ago, and it said that actually the gut informs the brain more than any other body part, that the connection between the gut and the brain for how we feel and process and make decisions is like 60%. It was some really high percentage. So we need to listen to that gut more.
Yeah.
So wonderful.
Yeah.
So anything else?
So I just want to just share something that just as we're speaking happened to me. And I mentioned in the beginning that this is my first week of semi-retirement. And as we're speaking, I see on my phone that's to the left of my computer a text from someone from the office from my school that I just stopped working at, and I ignore it. But then my phone rang and I see it's the same person. And my gut feeling is I've got to be a good girl. I've got to pick up the phone. I've got to stop what I'm doing right now and find out what Evelyn needs from me. Like, that's my gut, you know.
Well, are you sure that's your gut? Would anybody else venture to say what that might actually be?
That's her practical.
Yeah, practical.
That's the brain,
Well,
perhaps.
except that it's not, I mean, what are they going to do, fire me if I don't answer? You know, I don't work there anymore. So it's like, it's either my heart or my gut. But so the point is that I just quickly texted her and said, I'll call you back after 11. And she wrote back, sure. And I thought, it's like that moment of self-care. It's like, what do I need this moment? You know,
Right.
I don't need to talk to her this moment. She might need me to talk to her this moment, but I don't need to.
Right.
So it was like a big thing, you know, for me.
It's like the brain was telling you to pick up and follow the traditional, but it got you not to.
Yeah.
Exactly. And how do you feel now?
So I feel proud of myself, actually, like that. I'm like, yay me.
Woohoo!
I would jump in there with the gut for a bit of a reason, and I know I work in like emergency response. So when you get a call and you can't answer it, the gut sometimes does jump in because you think it's an emergency.
Yeah.
So the gut is saying, "Do I need to deal with this?" And then the brain might, jump in and go, "Well, yes, no, yes, no." But depending on the situation, I think sometimes that phone call is like do I need to deal with this? Is this urgent?
Yes. Yes.
Well, sometimes when I get calls and I know it's not urgent, but they might think it's urgent, I can feel already the resentment in me that I know I'm going to answer it, and I feel resentful that I don't want to.
Right.
And so I'm working at, I don't have to pick up every phone call the minute it rings. I can wait.
Right.
It can wait. Other people do it.
Right.
So,
For sure.
I wanted to share how listening to myself is actually affecting my kids. So, you can tell your kids for 100 years to do something, or you can just do the behavior and they pick it up. They pick it up so fast. They're grown kids. They're like 28 and 19, and seeing me being vulnerable, authentic, more and more aligned with myself, they just pick it up so quickly, and the change I see in them is just such an amazing change. And I don't preach. I just show it, and it blows my mind of why in the hell I didn't do it all these years. Like you said, Nikki, I wish I would have started 40 years ago.
Right. I know that feeling. But better late than never. So, wow. Any other comments? And I don't know how we're doing for time, Linda. I'll leave that to
No, we're
you.
doing great. Yeah.
Okay, good. So,
Susanna suggests she struggles when having to compromise between the three.
yeah.
Interesting comment. Yeah.
I
Especially when it comes to horses, you know, it's like I work at a therapeutic riding center, so we have, you know, need of a rider, you know, and need of a horse, or what's best for both, and sometimes there has to be compromise in what's necessarily best for the horse, for the rider, or vice versa. And it's sort of a really sticky place to be because you feel responsible and beholden to both.
Right. And that's probably where that's actually in part a cognitive decision, because you know you have to do the right thing for both, and it has to be a compromise, you know, because doing right by one means not doing right by the other party.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So, yeah, unfortunately, we don't have a perfect world, and I think that the real challenge and the real benefit is starting with the awareness of it, and just saying, that's my head talking. Wait a minute, how do I really feel about this? Or that's my emotions carrying me away. You know, what's my gut telling me? So
I also try to, you know, say it out loud. So whether it's to the horse and just be like, all right, we got 10 minutes of this. I know it's not ideal, but, you know, just so hopefully they know, and of course that there's some level of understanding that can happen, you know.
Yeah. And they feel it they feel it from you as well, right?
Yeah.
Yesterday I was out
but
walking.
You don't want them turning into the middle of the arena because they feel it so much.
No, that's true. But,
that means I can stop.
Yesterday I was walking my 8-year-old out, and he's a big Arab warm blood cross, and it was windy, and he was like woohoo, and he was like sort of all over the place, and I had a really bad day, and I had very little patience, and I finally just said, look, I don't have the patience for this today. I can't have you do this. And he just changed. I mean, not completely, but I don't know, something shifted. So they pick it up. They do pick it up. Yeah. And we pick it up from each other too, you know? So whether it's words, we say the words, or whether we just kind of give into it, the effect is often the same. So thank you for sharing that, Susanna.
Yeah. When I used to have a riding stable, it was often, and that was a few years ago, but there was this thing about don't be afraid. And don't let the horse know you're afraid. And we used to flip that and say, tell the horse you're afraid. It's okay. And it was a complete change when they would admit and say, you know, even just reach down and stroke the horse in the neck and say, I'm terrified right now. And the horse would just, okay, now you've named it.
Exactly.
And then we moved on. But this idea of, you know, in society even, don't be afraid.
Exactly.
When you're terrified, it's that integrity that as soon as the horse sees it and feels it, everything changes.
And I think with my work with leadership teams, when you have, and I'm not trying to be gender biased here, but it's typically men who come in with I'm not afraid, but they're sometimes afraid. And it affects the way they interact with the horse, and they come on with a lot of bluster and a lot of power, and the horse is going, whoa, you know, this isn't working for me. And it doesn't usually go well until they give into it and they acknowledge, you know, this is my first time, I'm not really sure what to do. and then everything goes smoothly. And it's the same thing with us when we come into a situation with an attitude where we've puffed ourselves up because we don't want to be vulnerable. We don't behave the same way. And the people we're around are not drawn to us. They're probably more like on guard, like, something's not right here. So the horses, I think, are just really effective because they show us, and we're not risking anything when we learn the lessons from them, because we're able to save face. We see it with them, and they don't hold grudges, and they forgive us, and they change in the moment anyway, where people not so much, not so quickly. So Denise, find yourself a horse nearby. Olga, you go hang out by a horse.
Yeah,
There
that
you
would be
go.
great.
And Subhashini, you too.
Yes, yes. I'm just waiting for this lockdown and the situation to get better so I can access a horse.
I know things are quite tight in India, aren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah. So wonderful. I just thank you all so much. I love the interaction and your interest in the topic. I so appreciate it, and your support for showing up today. It made my day. So
Thank you, Nikki.
Well, thank you, Nikki.
Wonderful.
Thank you,
You made
Nikki.
my day.
Absolutely.
It was nice meeting everyone.
Nice to
Yes,
meet you
absolutely.
all.
So
Take care. Have a great day, everybody.
Thank you, Nikki. Just hold on. Thank you guys for coming first. Thank you for participating and your discussion. Thank you, Nikki, for hosting, or being the host of this, and being the, as always, your, even in your articles, it's just, you have this way of just coming right to the point and making it so real that we can all really connect with it. If we want to keep the conversation going, we've got our Equine Leadership Facebook page, and we're going to post this and all the rest of everything there. We're posting on our YouTube page, but we'll put links there. We'll put Nikki's contact and her website there for her business, so you can go over there, connect with her that way. We really realized on Monday when we started with our networking session that we are actually creating networks. We're actually creating conversations, and we're creating these links around the world. So we have a Humanity Needs the Horses Facebook group. So if you want to head over there, if you haven't already, let's keep that conversation going. Let's connect with each other. I mean, this is this week, but it's so much more. And just wanted to let you know, and I know some of you are new here, but we do have some. Each year we print some of our magazines, so we do have some left. We print a small number just so they go out there, but there are some left. So I'm going to send an email out tonight, and there'll be some links there. Great for offices and for conversation pieces for people, or gifts.
And
or
they're
whatever.
very informative, really, really nice articles.
Yeah, Nikki's written in several
Well,
of
I
them,
didn't
and
mean
she's-
mine. I just meant it.
But that, yeah, thank you guys so much for being
Thank you,
here
Linda.
and making this. And Nikki, thank you from my heart to yours. Thank you
Linda,
guys.
thank you.
Take care.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Linda, I have a question.
Yes,
Oh, good, you're still there.
I'm here. Yep.
Going the PowerPoint, I know you're putting everything up on the YouTube video, so
Yep.
we can see everything again. Do we have access to the presenters' PowerPoints?
They're on there. I would connect with the presenters and ask them if they'll share it.
Okay.
Yeah, I haven't had anybody offer to do to that, so I would say just connect with them either on Facebook, or you'll be able to find their email on their links.
I'll put my email right here if anybody wants to.
Ah, there you go. And whoever is our admin person has a question too, if you want to come on screen or not. Oh, there's Nikki's email right there. Thank you. And then we have one more question, it says.
I too have a question. Who's the admin? That's like the secret person.
I know. If you want to type it in, I'm not sure who that is. So if you want to type it in, or, oh, there you go. You're off mute. Okay. I'm not hearing. If you are talking, I'm not hearing. Oh, here we go. Oh, Sarita.
Oh, Sarita. Hello.
If you want to come off your on video, or you can ask it in the issues with audio, of course. You can type it into the chat. Just wait till that comes up. Oh, there's a puppy. We just got a 5-month-old, but he's with my son this week. I so miss her.
Oh, she's beautiful. I saw her this week.
Yeah, she's very photogenic. It's like, oh, another picture. Sarita, if you want to put your question in the chat. I think she's typing.
I don't see that she's typing, but maybe that's because I'm not the admin.
Yeah. You were just talking earlier about your worldwide reach.
Oh. I know.
Yeah, I know. Eh? It's
yeah.
All from my daughter saying, it just blows me away, because it's like all from my daughter saying, Mom, you should do a summit, in a very flippant way. That was it. That was it. And it grew to this.
Smart
So,
girl.
Sarita, if you're a leader, always looking out for others, always feeling drained, and break yourself.
Breaking yourself.
That's a good comment.
So, that is a good comment. And what I would say about that, Sarita, is that just because we're in a leadership position does not mean we have to hold everything together. And part of being an effective leader, to what extent do you think a leader should go to help others? It's interesting. That's a very complex question. But in short, I would say two things. That when we are in the leadership role, we do not have to have all the answers. When we are in a leadership role, part of our responsibility is to support others in learning how to do things for themselves. So when we are leaders, the most important quality, or one of the most important qualities that I feel is important, is key, is being able to ask the right questions of people who report to you or work with you, to help them find the answers themselves. So you don't need to have the answers, you just need to help them access the answers. So when I'm facilitating a group, for example, and a team is trying to get from point A to point B, I don't give them the answers. I just ask them the questions that help them do the work for themselves. That's empowering. It takes the pressure off of you, and you're still creating the container to help them learn without having to carry the whole load on your back. I don't know if that makes sense to you. I just want to see your comment. Boundaries are so important, something I had to learn fast with humans in therapy. Yeah. Yes. So I think I mentioned this actually in a session I did this morning, and I said that if an employee comes to a manager with a problem, I tell the managers, I ask them what they do, and they say, well, I have to solve it and I have to take care of it. And I say, well, here's what I would do. If an employee came to me with a problem, I would say, what do you think we should do about that? And if the employee says, well, I haven't really thought about that much, I would say, well, how about you go away and spend some time thinking about it? You don't need to have all the answers. You don't even have to have the right answer, but do some thinking around it and then come back. And then they come back and they share 1, 2, 3 possible solutions. And then you walk them through the reasoning and you say, this makes good sense to me, but if we go that direction, I'm just wondering what would happen with this piece. And then the employee starts to think, well, yeah, maybe that wouldn't be so good. Well, what else could we try? So it's this idea of, it's this notion of asking questions to help people find the answers for themselves. And to me, that's the essence of really good leadership. Yeah. So does that help, Sarita? I don't know if the yes, absolutely was before, but.
I think so. That's lovely. There you go.
Yeah, you're very welcome.
It's interesting you talked about boundaries there, and we talk about, in my work I do, is that we talk about boundaries, ethics, and self-care, and how they're actually all of them are looped in together. Exactly. And they're not separate things, they're the same things. And to set a boundary is actually good self-care.
Exactly. And the horses are really good at making you set boundaries. People will sometimes say, why aren't you letting your horse, why are you doing this or whatever? And I say, listen, I'm a small person. They are big. If they come into my space, I just put my arms up and say, this is my space. Get out of my space. That's, if I don't respect my own space, how are they going to respect my space? So, I don't beat them, but I do say, get out of my space. And if they don't get out of my space, then I never beat them. But
yeah.
But they're really good at teaching that, and actually they've helped me a lot with that. So
excellent.
Still have a ways to go. It's a lifelong journey, I guess.
Always learning. Yes.
Yep. Yep.
Awesome.
So,
well, if we have no more questions, I think it's time to close this one and have a lunch break and get ready for our next one. So thank you again, Nikki. Always a pleasure, always fascinating, and always insightful and profound. We will go away from this and do some thinking for sure.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Those of you I know, and Tara, Eileen, Susanna, thank you so much. I really appreciate you joining me, and I hope we stay connected. Of course, Denise and Subhashni and the others that I do know will always stay connected for sure. But thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Nikki. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Linda.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.